This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
There's legit people walking door to door trying to sell, like, home goods.
For real?
Yes. Like, pots and pans and shit.
Sorry, I didn't know if, like, I'm really loud when I do this, so I was nervous someone was going to tell me to shut up. Welcome into the practice squad. Stroz, I don't think we've ever done the LeBron Jordan debate. Have we?
No, I think when we were watching the Michael Jordan documentary, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit. But
I always it's one of those things that gets done so often, you got to be careful not to overkill it. But I don't think we've ever done it. And you want to bitch about the best past basketball player in history today, so we're gonna get to that. I was trying to think of where to start, and we're gonna do that later. But it's gonna be a little bit different because I don't think we've ever done it. I have been racking my brain for our middle topic today, the pettiest you've ever been. And I think it's going to be a fun topic because there's never been a better way to highlight me and you. I genuinely don't know if there's a word in the English language less fitting of describing me than petty. It's just not who I am.
The best part was when I sent you the rundown, you're like, so I really like the middle topic, but I don't have any stories about being petty. And I was like, cool, I got a bunch.
Well, I mean, like, I'll be a part of the conversation, but for the life of me, when I say I'm racking my brain, I have at least spent a couple hours today trying to think of something petty I've done. I just don't think that's the kind of thing I do. But first, we had a week without Lions football, and people for my entire life have talked about how the bye week, like, it was a nice break, or they'll take a week off from watching and how nice it's been for them. And I think I've mostly thought they were joking, but I'm realizing maybe they weren't. I think for the first time in my life, not having the Lions on this week was a major win.
It was so enjoyable. I enjoyed not watching the Lions. It was great. I enjoyed not getting revved up. I enjoyed my emotions not getting played with. Plus, there was a ton of really good football that I got to experience and I got to take in and watch.
It was a pretty bad week in terms of the I don't know how to put it. Some of the games played out better, but the point spreads in the games were rough.
Oh, well, yeah, if you're betting, yeah, for sure. And I get when you watch games, you're usually watching it from a betting standpoint.
I mean that like there were heavy favorites in every game. Now some of them lost. You know, Kansas City was a 12-point favorite. Mm-hmm. So you don't expect that to be a good game. Miami was a 9-point underdog. You don't expect that to be a good game. The underdogs won both of those games. The point was, like, when you looked at the slate of the games, it was pretty ugly. They played out a little bit better than the expectations, but it was an ugly slate. And the thing is, like, I'll tell you, I was less excited for Sunday without a Lions game because that's who I care about the most. But I'm in this place where I don't enjoy Lions football because I don't care about Lions football. And so that brought me to the question of, would you go back to the Caldwell and the Schwartz era, even if it meant the pain of falling short, of not winning playoff games? And I want you to understand here, I'm not saying was this a mistake. And you can discuss that as well. I don't think firing Jim Caldwell was a mistake. I 100% believe it was the right decision. But I would take it back right now. Not him, but just that era.
I would go back to the Jims, Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell. I would go back to the Jims in a heartbeat because what you got on the field, you could see that they were building towards something. There was some promise there. There was something, right? Like I feel like we're hopeless right now.
See,
watching Matt Patricia's Lions, watching Matt Patricia's Lions, there's nothing that I wanna attach to. There's nothing that really gets me invested. With Jim Caldwell and Jim Schwartz, with those teams, I don't know, man. I just felt like you had a chance in games. You got to watch with Jim Schwartz. You got to watch a really good, aggressive defensive front. With Jim Caldwell, you got to watch Matt Stafford really come into his own. And those teams were playoff teams. And yeah, they fell short, but you were a playoff team.
But it's not even, you see, like you said, you felt those teams building towards something. And I don't even think that's totally fair. I mean, at the end of the day, Jim Schwartz made the playoffs once in 4 years, 5 years. I think it was 5 years.
He was also a guy who took an 0-16 team and got to the playoffs.
I mean, you know that Jim Schwartz is a guy I have fond memories of. Mm-hmm. But the point is, it's not about building towards something. It's just about the pure fact that those teams, like, at the end of the day, the reason we had that heartbreak is because they were good enough to give it to me, you know? Like, I guess what I'm saying, and it sounds dark when you go here, but it's true. Like, in all reality shows, I'm telling you, I want the Lions to be good enough to hurt me so I can feel something. Like, I don't feel anything about these Lions. I got angry week 1, and I haven't really had an emotion about these Lions since. I haven't felt happy. I haven't felt sad. Like, I want to feel something about these Lions. And I think, like, some people can go the angry route because anger is like an easy, like, it takes a lot to anger me in real life and in sports. It takes a lot to anger me. And so now I'm in this place where I just don't care. And I want you to understand it expands so far beyond the Lions. I don't care about the Red Wings. I don't care about the Tigers. I don't care about the Pistons. I just want to feel something. And the reason, like, the bye week certainly brought this to the forefront. But part of the reason I bring this up is because, you know, I'm watching these Houston sports teams. And let's be real, like, I'm rooting for them, but I don't have an emotional attachment to them. But, like, I watched the Astros in Game 3 specifically, and in the 8th inning, down by 3 runs, they get three men to the play, or 3 men on base, and don't bring anyone home. In the 9th inning, they get 3 men on base, don't bring anyone home. And the whole series has been them threatening to score and not scoring. And because of that, they're now down 3-1. And even though I don't really care that deeply about the Astros, I'm rooting for them. Those moments, I forgot what they feel like because this isn't a team I'm passionate about, these Astros. And I'm watching these moments and I feel that tension literally, like not just like your body feels the tension of those moments. When's the last time you felt that about the Detroit Lions? It wasn't last year. I mean, maybe week 1 this year, but I think most of us went into this year feeling pretty down. In all reality, I feel like I got to go back to like the Chiefs game. Yeah, you know what? The Chiefs game last year before we knew things were done. That's not often enough. This season's got, we're in week 5 or week 6 now, but game 5 for the Lions. They got 12 games to go. And I expect to feel that tension of that moment 0 more times. And so I don't want to sit in mediocrity forever. I don't think the answer is to keep a guy like Jim Caldwell on. The answer is to freaking move on when it's done. And I don't, like, I just want to feel something. That's really all I'm telling you. These Detroit teams haven't made me feel anything in a long time. And I'll take anything. I don't need a championship. I really don't. I want one. But I just need something. Just give me, like, win 9 games and miss the playoffs by a Green Bay loss in week 17. I would take that right now, Stroz. You say you would, but I don't believe you.
No, I see. I remember wanting to be in contention for something late in December. I remember wanting those final 2, 3, 4 weeks of the season to mean something. I remember being in that place, and right now I'm in a place where I'm similar to you. I just don't care. I don't care about this team. Really and truly, I want this team to lose every game. I know their stretch right now that is ahead of them is going to get a little bit easier, but I don't want them to win any of these games. I don't want any reason for Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn to come back. And I know we've had this conversation before, and I don't want to go down this route, but I want this team to lose as much as possible. And I do miss feeling something for this team besides apathy. And that's where I'm at right now. You know, I would go back to having Jim Schwartz, Jim Caldwell. And look, I agree with you. I think firing Jim Caldwell was the right move. I'm not going to argue that they should have kept him because to me, he was a guy who could get you only so far. He was the equivalent of what Rick Carlisle was to the Pistons. You needed somebody else to come in to help get you over that hump. Now, what happened with the Lions is they made a very bad move by going with Matt Patricia. I think both of us agree he's not a very good head coach. And what him and Bob Quinn have done has, I feel, really set this team back. And I don't think that they're headed in the right direction. That's why I want them to lose. That's why I want to blow out this regime. That's why I want to, I mean, I say start over, but I feel like you need a new voice at the top. And I feel like you need a new voice on the sidelines. And I think that could inspire some life with this team. And I think that could maybe bring you back to feeling something, at least for that first week, obviously, of the season. But I think even more than that, it'll give you a little bit of hope for what could come. Besides anger with that first week when they lost to Chicago, I felt nothing for this team. I felt I'm not upset with this team anymore. I just don't care about this team.
Well, and you know, like week 2, we talked about it ahead of time. Like you were rooting for them to lose. I wasn't sure where I was going to be. and I was rooting for them to lose. Or was it week 2 or I think it was week 3 actually.
Week 3, I think you're rooting for them to lose.
Well, no, it's week 3 I have in mind because I went in and I didn't know how I was going to feel, and came down to the end of the game, and I find myself just wanting them to lose. But it's like, even in that scenario, and maybe you can, I can't even feel passionate about that. It's too early.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like I cannot sit there and be like, I want them to lose. I know it's what's best, but like, while the plays are happening, I'm rooting for the good things to happen. Like, every individual play until it comes down to the wire, I'm rooting for the Lions. And it's just like, and honestly, Stroz, I think some of the stress here for me, it really expands deeply beyond the Lions. Because at least with the Lions, you can say in week 1, we both felt anger. You know, they went up 17-0. I was, at that point, at least still willing to give the season a try. Not 17-0, but it was 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. But, like, I think back to the Pistons. The last time I was invested was Stan Van Gundy's, probably the year after he made the playoffs. I go to the Tigers. The last time I was invested, I don't even remember the year anymore, man. Like, let's be real here. The year they got swept by Baltimore, what was that, 2016? Like, the year they got swept by Baltimore, they were in the playoffs, but nobody thought that team was going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't remember if I even watched the playoffs. So you got to go back to 2015 to find the last time I was invested in the Tigers. And I know I'm not a hockey guy and I trash hockey, but like, I have been at times in my life a hockey fan. The last series I remember caring about the Red Wings, I'm pretty sure it was a first-round series. It's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. I don't need a champion. And when you have good teams, boy, that sounds stupid to say. I'll tell you, like, here in Houston, Daryl Morey stepped down. We take calls on it all day at work. And you get mixed bag, right? Guy did a lot of good things, but he never won a championship. I am all for having that standard of a championship. I'm not going away from that, but I need to care about something. Somebody in Detroit needs to give me something. And because it's a 16-game season, I think it's actually far and away the easiest for the Lions to do. You don't need to actually be good. You just need to not be awful.
Which team do you think is going to give you something to care about first out of the four major teams?
So much easier in the NFL. You need to be a 7-win team and you can have an entertaining season.
But here's the thing. Do you believe that they're going to be that team? Because they've let you down so much. Like, I don't think it's going to be the Lions.
Yes, Stroz, that's part of the problem. There's no reason this team shouldn't be in the 7-win ballpark. Like, I know you think this team's atrocious, but that's BS. The offense has every reason, outside of Stafford underperforming right now, has every reason to be elite. I'm not telling you they should be a 10-win team, but when Patricia and Quinn are gone, I fully expect the Lions to at least let us root for the playoffs. I'm not saying they'll make it. Mm-hmm. That's the thing here. That's how low my damn bar is, Stroz. I want you to understand, I'm not asking for them to lose in the playoffs. I'm asking for them to win 7 games. I'm asking to care in December. That's how low my bar is. Like, it's funny because we agree here. And so sometimes those topics don't work the greatest, but I don't think you came in knowing where I'm at. I'm not asking for a freaking playoff team. I'm asking for a team who can make me believe they're a playoff team. I'm asking to be fooled. I'm literally asking to be shot in the heart by this damn team.
All you want is lipstick on a pig. That is
exactly.
All you want.
That's really all I'm asking for. And Stroz, the NFL is built to do that. The NFL gives you the damn lipstick. All you got to do is put it on.
In the rundown sheet, right? I gave you a misery index. Right?
75 out of 10.
Is this worse than the Millen era for you? Because you lived through that.
In the Millen era.
But you lived through it.
Is the actual situation worse? Hell no. And I think it's ridiculous to say it's worse. Is it worse for me? Hell yeah. You know what I want? I want to be stupid. There are grown-ass sports fans who have that childlike ignorance about them and go into every season thinking their team's going to win a championship. I want to be that person. I was that person during the Millen era. I didn't know how bad Millen sucked. Dude, we have Roy Williams, Mike Williams, and Charles Rogers. How the hell are you going to stop this offense? I want to be that guy again.
Those names make me want to puke in my trash can.
Knowing what you're talking about is the single worst thing that can happen to you as a sports fan. I envy you if you think the Lions are going to be Super Bowl contenders next year.
Yeah. Like, for me, this is about as bad as the Millen era. I remember, so like I'm obviously I'm older than you, and we talk about how I'm 100. By the way, I've got back pain that's been bothering me all week. I just rolled over and got out of bed. It's just crept up on me again. Not good. Pretty soon I'll be doing our shows in a wheelchair, maybe with a walker. Who knows? Anyways, living through the Millen era was absolutely brutal. It was horrendous, and it got to a point where me as a fan, I just said screw it, and it became a chore to watch the games on television. And I'm not at the point where it's a chore to watch the games on television, but I don't care. I'm not invested at all in this team. And like I've told you before, I want this team to lose. I don't even want this team to necessarily look relevant. If Matt Stafford could go out there and just be healthy and look good, that's cool. But again, that's for an ulterior motive of trading him. And whatever it is, I just don't care about this team. I don't want this team to win. I want this team to continue to suffer through the season. And I don't want any redeeming quality or any redeeming facts for Sheila to be like, hey, we got to keep Bob Quinn. We got to keep Matt Patricia because they got us 7 wins and we were in playoff contention. Because I don't know, like I wonder as the season progresses, because again, they're approaching a stretch in their season where it's going to lighten up a little bit. They're going to get some teams that aren't extremely difficult. That being said,
they're not approaching. They're here.
I think the other teams are, right. And then I think the other teams are probably looking at them the same way. But I'm wondering if they reel off a couple wins, if you get a little bit more invested, and maybe later in the season they are in contention for a playoff spot. If that brings you back a little bit.
I don't think I can buy into this team. Now, is there a record they could have? Yes. I don't think they're capable of getting there. Like right now, they're 1-3. Give me the 5-3, and I'm gonna be conflicted. I'm gonna be in the spot where I know that Matt Patricia's not good, but at least I can root for the playoffs for one enjoyable year. But I don't think they're good enough to get there. Is it possible? Sure. I really don't. Like, can they beat the Jaguars and the Falcons? Sure. But I don't think it's a given. And especially not winning both of them. And so they're not going to get to, like, it would take a lot for them to convince me. Like, if they go out and blow out the Jaguars and Falcons, and then you're sitting at 3-3, then I'll be in the conflicted spot of I know losing's best for them, but they could make a playoff run. But if they sneak out in those 2 games with wins, I'm still not going to be in.
So, like, this week, like they're playing Jacksonville. And the way I see this game playing out, it's going to basically be 2 one-legged cats fighting over a turd to bury on a frozen pond. Like, I just see, like, one of the worst games.
Hold on.
You didn't like that? You didn't like that metaphor?
Hold on. Is that did you just come up with that?
Yeah.
2 cats fighting over a turd to bury on a frozen pond.
Yeah. 2 one-legged cats.
One-legged cats.
One-legged cats.
Is that a thing that happens?
I mean, there are one-legged cats, and if they ever got onto a frozen pond and tried to bury their poop, I mean, that's a thing.
I'm sorry. That was just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Continue.
But that's what I think this game's going to look like. I think this game is going to be absolutely brutal. Neither one of these defenses, I feel, are any good. And I think both of these teams have okay-ish offenses. So I don't know what we're going to see. I don't think it's going to be a very good game. I mean, maybe it'll be entertaining as hell, like those cats on that frozen pond, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a great game.
Okay, we're going to fight later, I'm sure. I don't exactly know what's going to happen, but we're going to fight because you have some bullshit to complain about with LeBron James. But I'm curious.
Stop whining, bro.
We were trying to set up, figure out our middle topic, and you told me that you hated your sister's, I guess, fiance now, right?
So today, fiance, Saturday will be her new husband.
Fiance, you've hated him for 10 years, and you have a story related to that. The pettiest thing you've ever done, and you're going to have to go first.
So I realized when we were trying to set this topic up, like our middle segment, we show up here and we just tell stories about awful things or great things that have happened to us.
Oftentimes belittling ourselves in one way or another.
Yes.
Obviously for me and you in very different ways.
Very different ways.
But still. For me, we make fun of the TV shows I watch. For you, we talk about how bad of a person you are.
I told you before the show, we'll have a story for later on, but that one will be interesting. And again, I'm a very bad person. So it'll be a good time in a couple weeks. But you have to go back 10 years. My sister and her fiance have been together forever and a day. And it's not been consistent. They've been on again, off again for 10 years.
Oh.
But this all goes back to a birthday party that she had. My sister? I'm 37. She's 35.
Okay.
So you have to go back. You have to go like back 10 years to a birthday party that she was having at a bar in Sterling Heights. And she invited me to her birthday party, and I showed up, and I'm assuming I showed up with my girlfriend, or maybe at the time it was my ex-wife. I don't remember. I showed up with somebody. Anyways, it was my ex-wife. That's right. So we're there, and my sister's hammered, absolutely hammered, and she's having a good time. There's this guy and this other guy there, and to me, they just came off as creeps, just like straight up creeps. Anyways, if you hear Rob tell the story, he tells it a little bit different than I'm going to tell it, but I'm telling it from my perspective. Anyways.
Which means you don't sound like as big of an asshole, basically.
Well, I mean, I'm going to tell you straight up, I was an asshole. But I didn't like these guys because they were staring at my sister, and I didn't know what they wanted. Anyways, my sister gets hammered. She invites them to Coney Island after. My sister had a hotel room that she was having like an after party at. So she invites them to Coney Island. We get to Coney Island. I end up sitting in the booth with these clowns, and like I'm just mean mugging her future husband the whole time. And I'm making him feel really uncomfortable, or at least I was trying to. They end up showing up at her hotel, and I was like, what the fuck are these guys doing here? Like, what is going on here? Like, this makes no sense. And my mom's there. My mom's like, Adam, just watch your sister. And I'm like, I'm about to kill this guy. I don't even know him, but I'm about to pile drive him. What is going on? So fast forward like 9 years. I've never really let him live it down. I've always made him uncomfortable. Like, he would walk in a room, I really wouldn't acknowledge him. He would have to come say hi to me. My mom would always be like, just be nice to him. And I'm like,
now I want to specify, 9 years later, the reason you don't like him is because he was looking at your sister?
Well, they ended up going out afterwards. But like,
yeah. Where's the problem? Yeah. You just don't like him because he's going out with your sister?
No, I didn't like him for how he, like, I felt like that night he was a total creep. And he was just a freaking weirdo. And for some reason, I never let it go because
I'm assuming they knew each other.
No, they met that night.
Okay.
So like I'm the king of petty because I've never let that moment go, and I made it awkward for him for the next 9 years.
So I want you to understand the reason I'm not a petty person is because I now feel uncomfortable. Like the idea of you knowing this person for 9 years and holding that against him makes me feel gross. Like seriously. I feel sick. And I want you to understand, like, this isn't my thought process. Physically, hearing this story makes me feel sick.
Why?
Because I just don't, that's just not who I am. I can't imagine, like, and I'm not, like, saying, like, you make me sick.
Yeah. No, I got you.
But, like, holding that against somebody you know and is, like, a part of your life like that.
Yeah.
Dude,
could you imagine?
Sure here before.
Imagine how awkward it was for him every time he would come over for a holiday, and I'd just be standing there in the corner, like, leering at him, like, "What are you gonna do?"
I'm sure I've shared this here before, but my best friend says my biggest problem is that I can't hate people.
Yeah,
but like
you're way too nice of a person.
In reality, the people that I dislike is such a small list, and like if people are in my life one way or another, whether or not it's my choice, like I want to be on good terms with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so holding on to something like that to me. Like the thought of that makes me feel sick.
So, like, do you have trouble like just cutting people out of your life?
Oh, dude, trouble wouldn't begin to describe it. There is, I would say, 2 people in my entire life that I have ever been legitimately close with that I am not close with anymore. One of them was, I don't know if I ever told the story about the guy who I stole his seat at a football game and he started crying. He stole.
What?
Here's the best part. It was my seat. He stole it when I left for something, and then I stole it back, and he cried when he came back, and I found out I took it. And I just, literally from that moment on, I was just like, no ill will towards him at all. I just didn't want to like have anything to do with him anymore. And then the other's my ex, and like that's it. Aside from those 2, every single other person who's ever been close to me is still a pretty significant part of my life.
That's crazy. Like, so like I think there's something really wrong with me and damaged with me because I can pretty much just cut people out. And I think
mine's as much as a flaw as yours. They're just in very opposite directions.
Yeah, very like, and that's what makes this podcast so good because we are completely different people. Anyways, fast forward now, we're going on year 10, I think, maybe year 11. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's great. And like after he proposed, I think the day he proposed to my sister. So
you realize he wasn't just a creep.
Well, like, so you got to remember too, their relationship has been very on again, very off again.
Right.
And it was one of those things where he proposed, and you know what it was? It was the way he proposed, because me and my sister are very close. He came to me and asked for her hand in marriage, and then he was like, "I'm going to need your help asking your dad." So my dad is a very fickle character. He is, so my brother-in-law is Chaldean. My dad is pretty racist.
I knew that's what you were gonna say.
Yeah. So my sister was terrified to introduce my future brother-in-law to my father, and my dad never met Rob until basically the day that I kind of set this whole thing up, where Rob was going to go to his house to meet him to ask for my sister's hand in marriage.
He never met him prior to proposing?
Never.
I'm going to put this on the table. If I was dating a girl and I never met her father prior to proposing, I would not ask for his permission, period.
Yeah.
That's to me a very like couple to couple thing, whether you do that in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But if I never met her dad, that's off the table.
Yeah. And like that's pretty much how I am with it too, right? So he asked my stepdad for her hand, and he asked
very,
me,
very traditional man.
And he was like, "I need your help with your dad because I don't even know your dad." So I was like, "Well, that's going to be awkward." So yeah, I had to like get all that situated, but it was the way he came to me and asked for my sister's hand in marriage, and after that, I was like, "You're the best." So after all of that, like I absolutely love this guy. And I've got no problem hanging out with him. My condo that I bought off of him. Last weekend, my girlfriend, her sister got married, and I don't have an iron. I didn't even realize I didn't have an iron. It's weird what you end up missing. You don't really realize it's gone until you need it. So like my ex-wife had the iron and my grandmother's ironing board. So I don't have an iron. And I call my sister. I'm like, "Hey, do you have an iron?" And she was like, "I do." And I was like, "Can I use it?" And she was like, "You can." I was like, "Are you home?" And she was like, "No," because I was hoping she could iron my shirt for me because I can't iron to save my life. So I like walk in the house and like Rob's there and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I need to borrow your iron." And he was like, "Cool." I was like, "Do you know how to iron?" And he was like, "Sure do." I was like, "Hey, you want to help me out?" He's like, "I'm already ahead of you. I got it." So he just took care of it, ironed it for him. He's a great dude. I go over there and we hang out. I mean, the funny thing is, this is now a talking point in our relationship. He brings it up all the time. We'll be at a family dinner and he's like, "You remember those previous 9 years?" He was like, "Fuck you for that." And I was like, "Yeah, bro."
So what was the petty thing? Just holding it against him?
Yeah. And just making him feel like a piece of shit every time he came over.
So you didn't do any one thing in particular?
No, I made it uncomfortable for him every time he came around.
Okay.
Like every time.
Was like a specific story.
No, like it was like 9 years of just being a dick to him.
So I after racking my brain, I have a story I want to share. It does not qualify as petty, but it is the closest thing that I can come up with. And I want you to know, when I've shared this story before, and I can't believe I'm putting this on recording because I was embarrassed of this story. I've only told one person this story, and they freaking died laughing at it. So when me and my ex of 6.5 years broke up, I would often drive back from Grand Rapids to Detroit because that's where like all my close friends were at the time. Mm-hmm. And when I say often, I mean like at least a couple times a month. And there's a billboard on the way, or at least used to be, for Frankenmuth. And that was like, Frankenmuth was like a yearly trip I did with my ex. And it like hurt so much to see that every time driving by it that I, in the car by myself, nobody with me, would always flip off the Frankenmuth side.
I had a feeling that's where we were going.
And understand, have I shared that story with you?
No.
And understand, I'm not even like petty towards her. Like I don't have any negative wishes towards her at all. But just that sign pissed me off. I was petty towards that sign because it hurt to see.
So angry at an inanimate object.
And you got to understand, like, that's the closest thing to petty I can come up with. I'm not kidding.
B, you are such a good... You really are. How did you ever hook up with a trash bag like me?
When did we first decide to do this podcast? Was it...
So this was When was this?
You know what? Okay, no. So you know what? I remember I had actually just recently started therapy. It was like I had like after that breakup, I was like depressed for a year. And it was the back end of that, and like I really wanted to like pour myself into things I cared about. And I knew like we had talked about it way back because I thought there was a chance we could get an actual show.
Yes. We were on the verge of getting one.
Right. That didn't work out, but I ended up coming back to it for a podcast because I knew we would do a good podcast. And I think like the moment I really knew it would be good, like we knew from like working together on air, but I think for me, I really knew at the draft party. I don't know if we had even started yet.
Oh no. Yeah, no, we hadn't. Yeah, the draft party was so much fun.
It's actually crazy to think back that we had not started at that draft party because like I thought it was like very clear at that party how much chemistry we had. I think that's all it is. Like we clearly bounce off each other well. And I don't know, man. I really wonder what it would be like without a podcast. If we just lived in the same area and hung out. Because I do think we just have a very natural bounce off each other.
It's I try to explain it to people, right? So most of the preview videos we used to do, right?
Right.
So one of the guys that I work with knows very little about my background, and he's getting into digital editing. And I was telling him about some different programs, different stuff, and I showed him some of those preview videos, and he was like, "Oh my God, you guys are great together." And I was like, "Oh, well, thanks." I was like, if like I was ever to do a radio show with somebody, I'd want it to be with this guy because we're polar opposites. And we just kind of go off of each other very, very well. So, by the way, that draft party, I was so hammered at that thing. How I got home was a mystery.
I very like adamantly told you to stay at my place too.
You did. You were like, just stay with me. And I was like, nah, I just got to go home. I'll go home. It's no big deal. How I got home, I don't remember.
So I never met you yet, so I don't like. I probably just thought that in person you were a little bit more wild than on the radio. Like I knew you were drinking, but I didn't realize how much you had.
Yeah, I drink a lot.
Actually, I remember you telling me. It was shortly before you left. You're like, dude, I am so drunk. And I was like, oh, are you? I was like, dude, just stay with me. Because I remember you telling me you were so drunk and me being like,
yeah,
this isn't just
like,
you.
Really? Are you okay? Yeah.
I'll say this. If that was you drunk, I think me and you drunk are very similar in one way. We're the same damn people. Just way more intense.
Yes.
You don't change as a drunk person.
That's exactly what it is, right? It gets ratcheted up like to 14.
Dude, I've said it before on this podcast. I am such a damn happy drunk and so positive. and so it's the same thing. It just ratchets us up all the way. I don't want to stop this topic because it's fun. We got to kind of wrap up here shortly, and I'm going to just let you take the floor. You had issues with LeBron James because you're a bitch, but go ahead.
I like how you slipped that in. So, look, I think LeBron James is a great basketball player. Let me just go on and say that.
Thank you.
Just hold on. Okay, I wish I had a mute button because I want to mute you right now. I wish I had a mute button. Listen, I think he's a great basketball player. And I don't think you can argue his greatness, right? And I think he's probably an even better human being. Like you really look at what he's done for different charities, different communities, and you really look at how he tries to take care of everybody who's coming up behind him. I think he's fantastic. All right. They just won an NBA championship. All right. They won it in 6 games. He gets the MVP. And this guy wants to go and bellyache and say, I just want my respect. Bro, you are a great basketball player, okay? I myself will never put you in the class of Michael Jordan because I think Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player to ever live. And I know that your stats in the things that you are accomplishing right now are about to supersede what Michael Jordan has done. I get it. I understand. But there's a difference. Michael Jordan, drafted by the Bulls, played on only the Bulls, didn't go out and team up with all of his buddies.
No, all of them just came to play with him.
Who? Dennis Rodman was part of a trade, and Scottie Pippen was a guy who was drafted by the Bulls. And Scottie Pippen
is the wrong word to use, but the point is Michael Jordan won championships on teams that were every bit as good.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. I would say
was Jordan the general manager? Did he draft Scottie Pippen? Did he trade for Dennis Rodman? He didn't do those things.
No, he absolutely did.
Why does he get credit for staying with one team who happened to bring him those superstars? Do you know who the number 2 was on LeBron's first championship appearance? Legitimate question.
Wasn't it? Wasn't Boobie Gibson? Was it Boobie?
He was number 3. You know who number 2 was? Mo freaking Williams.
That's right, Mo Williams.
Oh, how about
his Cleveland championship? His Cleveland championship will go down in history as one of the most spectacular things ever done.
What I'm saying though is the reason he left is because he had nobody. If Michael Jordan had to play with Mo Williams and Boobie Gibson, he wouldn't have stayed in Chicago his whole career.
He would have killed them, and then they would have got somebody else.
Yeah, and they would have brought other awful players like they continued to do when LeBron left. Wonderful. Now you got Dion Waiters. How awesome.
You end up going to Miami. Look, I think the one thing, too, because I used to be a LeBron fan. I think the one thing that really tarnished parts of his legacy was, and I think if he could take it back, he probably would, was his announcement, right? Him going to Miami. I think that was poorly done. I think it put him in a bad spot. He ends up going to Miami, teams up with D. Wade and Chris Bosh. All right, so like obviously you can't get it done by yourself. So now you got to go with arguably the next two of the next top 5 guys in the league at the time, and then from there he ends up going back to Cleveland, and then it's like, hey, if you're a free agent, just come over here and play with me. Fine, I get it. You're just kind of taking advantage of the system. And then from there, he ends up in the Lakers, and there is a lot of background communication between him and Anthony Davis, and eventually Anthony Davis makes his way over there. Like I can't put you and I can't hold you in the same regard as a guy like Michael Jordan, and I think you're a better player than Magic was, but I still don't hold you in that same regard because those guys stayed on their teams and built their teams were built around them.
Okay.
You went around and you basically teamed up with your buddies and your pals, and you're like, cool, are you a really good basketball player? Come play with me. That's my issue.
LeBron James played with the Cavs until 2010?
Sounds about right.
So the first year without LeBron James, the Cavs drafted Kyrie Irving and Tristan Thompson. Kyrie Irving, great pick.
Yep.
Tristan Thompson, not so much. The following...
You don't think he was a good role player? I mean, I don't think he was great, but I think he was a good role player.
But I want you to look. The Cavs, when LeBron left, routinely picked the top of the draft, and they still couldn't put together a winning team until LeBron came back. In 2012, they picked 4th. They took Dion Waiters. In 2013, they picked 1st. They took Anthony Bennett. By the way, they also picked 19th that year. They took Sergei Krasov. Anthony Bennett and Sergei Krasov.
Who was the best player in that draft?
I have no idea. That was a really bad draft. I'm pretty sure that was the Contavious Caldwell Pope draft.
Oh, really?
Even if it wasn't, that was a bad draft.
It was a bad draft.
The point is, LeBron leaves, and the Cavs have top draft pick after top draft pick after top draft pick. And the following year, they took Andrew Wiggins. That was when LeBron returned, obviously. But they went from 2011 to 2005. They picked 4th twice and 1st 3 times in a span of 3 years. What? Huh? I mean, 4 drafts. But in 4 drafts, they picked 1st 3 times and 4th. And they couldn't put together a team that could win even hardly with LeBron James. So, this is ridiculous. You know what happens if LeBron stays? He's the story of the greatest player to never win a championship. And so because of that, he loses credit. And we never even got into what you wanted to talk about. You had a problem with him demanding respect.
Yeah, that's my issue because I respect you. And I think he is held in high esteem by everybody who watches basketball and people who don't even watch basketball. But I think what he wants to be in that class with Michael Jordan. He wants to be Michael Jordan.
He wants to be viewed as the greatest player to ever play because his stats say he is. He's
Fantastic.
Won championships with completely different sets of teams. The man doesn't stop going to championships.
I know. The fact that his body is held up this long is amazing. Because the rigors that he has to play under, you have to realize too, his recovery time from playing in championship after championship after championship after championship, you go from having an off season which is 3 or 4 months to now it being condensed to maybe 2. You don't ever get to fully recover.
By the way, I
respect that.
I think it's more impressive to win championships on different teams in completely different situations.
Because everything's a little bit.
Well, it needs to. There's a whole bunch of reasons. It needs to fit differently. You need to find the pieces to put around him. It shows that you're not. It shows that LeBron James is in no way dependent on the pieces around him. LeBron James can win with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. He can win with Anthony Davis. He can win with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. And I understand those are all great players. The point is he can do it. You put good players with him, he's going to win championships. And let's be clear here. Whether or not you think they were the greatest team of all time, the Warriors team that broke the record for most wins that he beat, whether or not you think they're the greatest team of all time, they're undeniably the greatest team to ever lose in the NBA championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he has the most impressive NBA championship win ever. I think that not giving LeBron that respect of putting him in the GOAT conversation, I think he's far and away.
I think he belongs in the conversation. I'm not saying that. My issue is
you don't though.
I think I won't. I won't ever put him above Michael Jordan. I just won't.
Yeah, so you don't really think he deserves to be in the conversation?
No,
because it doesn't matter what he does.
I think he's number 2, so he should be in the conversation.
You're telling me it doesn't matter.
He should be in the conversation. This is the way I see it going.
If he wins 3 more championships in his career, does he deserve to be in the conversation? Could you put him above him?
So what do you have? 9?
You have 7. He's only won 4.
Okay.
So if he passes Jordan in championships won, can he?
Man.
Because what I was hearing was that you wouldn't. You said I wouldn't. I will never.
That's a tough question. Serious thing, because I try to be a very open-minded sports person. I try to be.
It's just a conversation where you're not. That's all. I also think that's funny that you consider yourself an open-minded sports person.
I am. There are times where you talk me out of things.
Yeah.
I come into it with a very strong opinion. Next thing you know, you hit me with 9,000 facts, and I'm like, "B, you're a pretty smart guy.
Question.
I think you might be right."
How often are you talking? Like, if you took my podcast away, how often are you talking to people who don't strongly agree with a lot of your sports takes?
So at work, especially when it comes to LeBron, pretty much everybody at work.
Yeah,
but I work with a lot of younger people though.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
So they've not got to experience Michael Jordan. It's weird because it kind of becomes a generational talk. I wonder if somebody was around watching Bill Russell play, if they would consider Michael Jordan better than Bill Russell.
Oh, it's entirely generational, and it's the same thing here for me and you. I just don't know, like, the arguments against LeBron. I just don't understand. Like, the fact that he had to go to play for different teams, I don't understand it, because he's now won championships with 3 different teams. And let's be real here, Stroz. He could win championships. The dude could leave every year and win championships.
Oh, I agree. But the thing is, when he leaves, he's got to get somebody else over there, or he's got to go play with somebody else.
But the point is, Jordan did it with other people too. He did it with the same people, which I genuinely think makes it less impressive. He had the same stars around him. They didn't have to overwhelmingly blow apart what they did. LeBron winning a championship in Cleveland versus winning a championship in Miami versus winning a championship in LA have all been very different. And I also don't understand how losing an NBA championships hurts you. I'm sorry, the man's been to 10 NBA championships.
What, I don't hold that against him.
And those are the arguments, because statistically, LeBron is better in basically every way. He's more efficient while putting up comparable or better numbers in basically every stat. So that's the reason it is generational, but I don't understand. Like, I didn't really get to experience Jordan. I watched Jordan with the Wizards. I never watched him with the Bulls. Yeah. But I don't. When numbers tell me that LeBron is better, and when the biggest arguments against LeBron make no sense to me, it's really hard to hear it the other way.
I don't think I would ever be able to get you to soften on your stance in regards to LeBron.
I'll tell you this. There was a time when I didn't think this, but LeBron is so far and away surpassed it. Like, every year he to me puts this conversation further and further in the back, where we're like, it's not a conversation anymore. 7-8 years ago, I would have been on your side. 5 years ago, I probably switched to LeBron, but I thought it was close. 3 years ago, I started to think LeBron was pulling away. Like, now it's just like, what the hell does this man have to do? Like, I don't understand what the notch in the belt is he needs. And the answer is he needs to be Michael Jordan. It's an emotional, like, this is what I grew up with. You can't beat it. I really believe that. I believe that the man could average 45 points a game in the playoffs, and it wouldn't be enough. And who knows? I'll be really curious to see when LeBron's done and the next guy does it. You know, will I be set on LeBron no matter what? I'm glad we had the conversation. I think you're wrong.
Shocker.
But it is always a fun debate. If you had any thoughts on anything today, at Brendan Riley _ Adam R. Stroz. The one I'm particularly curious because I can't relate. I need to live through you. is your most petty story, or the most petty thing you've done. Stroz made a guy uncomfortable for 9 years. I flipped off a billboard.
A billboard.
Multiple times. Probably did it for a good 6 or 7 months.
Oh, B, I love you.
I'm glad I've overcome that. I was embarrassed by that.
You're such a good guy.